I'm not a foolish person. Undoubtedly, many of you will disagree when you understand the situation I found myself in. I was too prideful to admit that I thought I was insightful and astute. If that were the case, things would have turned out quite differently. From the beginning, I realized that Carol was willful. When she wanted something, she would go to little lengths to get it. She downplayed it while we were dating. She seemed admirable, this single-minded determination to get things done. I think when she decided she wanted me, she pursued me with the same zeal. Sure, it was flattering to be pursued, but that wasn't all. She was very attractive, intelligent, and had a wide range of interests, so she was fun to talk to. Truth be told, she had a very nice body, though it might not have attracted more than a first glance if she didn't have everything else going for her. She liked to show off her physicality. She bought slot clothes, short, low-cut and tight. An important part of the dating experience for Carol was being noticed and admired by other men. I think she got an even bigger charge when other women looked at her enviously. She watched her diet and exercised diligently to remain an object of interest. No amount of reassurance from me could convince her that she was still sexy. She needed validation from the outside. The early years of our marriage were filled with fun. Carol loved to travel and I had no serious objections, so we traveled. She did the research and made the plans. It was actually nice to have someone else in charge sometimes. She also planned and insisted on going to the theater. But what guy wouldn't agree with a woman who not only watches whatever sport I choose, but can expertly discuss it? We still had a good marriage, but our blissful, quite happy, married existence was disrupted when I took a job with a computer consulting firm that began sending me out of town frequently. There was nothing we could do about it. Jobs were scarce, let alone good jobs, and we couldn't pay the bills on Carol's income alone. Although we didn't have children, it was in our plans. But we decided it would be unfair to put most of the burden on Carol while I had to spend so much time away from home, and we put off the thought of adding to our family. I can't say I remember many nights on the road with any particularity. They are interspersed. Memories of one night may just be bits and pieces of many nights jumbled together, like the night I saw those two gorgeous young blondes flaunting themselves at Red Lobster. No one goes to the bathroom that many times in one meal. They walked slowly. They swayed. I've had time to realize everything. I arrived before them. After ordering, I sat down at my table and waited for my food to be brought to me. I was at the table alone. I didn't have a book to read. I had no dinner partner to share a conversation with. I was alone with my thoughts. I pondered how many people were looking at me and thinking about how this was a big loser's night out. No one else was eating alone. They were all socializing amongst themselves. People were laughing, pointing at each other, maybe one of them was touching another while they were talking. Sometimes I noticed someone looking at me. Were they judging me? Did it make a difference? I knew I was not a failure, but I felt desperately lonely, isolated. As I walked by, the blondes would cast slanted glances at me, as if they made eye contact with me, some of what made me feel lonely would spill out onto them. After dinner, I went to a Little League baseball game. I love watching baseball. Thousands of little details make up each game. I sat among couples, groups, and families. Whatever interested them in the game, they shared their experiences. They might have shared it elsewhere. It didn't matter. By sharing their experiences, they knew they weren't alone, that they had a friend to lean on, to take care of. I didn't have that experience. I had myself and a baseball. I'm not sure I saw this game on the same night as the two girls. I'm not even sure which city they called home. The time on the road was mostly a black and white collage of meaningless moments. When you are happily married and on the road, the emptiness of the experience is easy to realize. You may call your wife every night. What can you say about your day? I had dinner alone, went back to work and found out that most of my sales information can be passed on to the marketing department. You can tell her that you had dinner at a restaurant last night and went back to your room to watch TV. You'll ask how her day went without you. This sparkling exchange is not what holds the relationship together. At best, it keeps them on life support. At least she has friends back home. You, on the other hand, are on your own. In the process, you are sure to meet attractive and interesting girls. You can't date them. Even if they wanted to save you from the drudgery of loneliness, it wouldn't be fair to them, the relationship might go nowhere, and it wouldn't be fair to your wife. Such is the carefree existence of the road warrior. Sometimes you go into the hotel bar for a drink. It's not that you want a drink. But being amongst living, breathing, talking, laughing people is a better reminder that there is a life somewhere that you can someday participate in than just locking yourself in your cell. Every once in a while you will have the opportunity to dance with someone. How nice it is to be able to share a conversation with someone. This is going nowhere. It's not going anywhere. But it's human contact. Perhaps I am exaggerating somewhat. I remember 3 evenings to distinguish them with sufficient clarity from all the other amorphous nights. Carol noticed how the departure was affecting me. From time to time she would sneak something into my suitcase to cheer me up, sometimes a chocolate bar, sometimes a note to remind me that she missed me, too. On one trip, she put a note promising me a surprise. It was my 3rd week in Chicago, and I was having dinner at the hotel restaurant. While I was waiting for my onion soup, looking around at the other customers and wondering what they thought of the lonely guy, I heard a woman's voice to my left. Simon Newsome. I turned around and saw an attractive brunette, 5 feet 6 inches, about 30 years old, weighing about 10 pounds less than ideal. Engagement and wedding ring on the 4th finger of her left hand. Silly, isn't it? I am by no means free, but this look to check out is almost involuntary. I'm sorry, I can't identify the face. Do I know you? No, it isn't. My name is Annie Carson. My old friend Carol Newsome asked me to have dinner with you tonight. She wasn't called that when we were friends in college, but I hear she's since married a nice guy. Do you mind if I join you? Of course not. I was stunned. Carol said you often eat alone, and she wanted you to have company for once. Wow. She's kind of special. Yes, she is. You're lucky. It's amazing. I think it's the most incredible gift I've ever received. You don't know the half of it. She bullied me until I rearranged my entire schedule to meet you here. Carol doesn't know how to take no for an answer. No, she doesn't. It took her 5 phone calls to make it happen. It's nice to know how important it is for her to take care of me. Yes. You know, you have a nice smile, Simon. Don't forget to tell Carol that. She gave you that smile. You certainly didn't have it when I came in. I'll have to thank her properly when I get home. She mentioned it. She said she'd be waiting for you in her little black nightie for you to thank her when you got home. An attractive man approached our table. I'm not interested in men, but I can tell the difference between attractive and ordinary. Simon, this is my husband Richard. I stood up and we shook hands. You look surprised, Simon, she said. Did you really think your wife was going to set you up with a beautiful temptress while you were lonely and far from home? She chuckled. Richard is here as our chaperone. You haven't had any bad thoughts, have you? Of course not. It never occurred to me. I stuttered. You flinch so easily. Carol was right. I had one of the best evenings on the road, just having dinner with Annie and Richard. It wasn't just that I had dinner in pleasant company, Carol had been thoughtful enough to arrange everything. On my return home I thanked her profusely. During another trip, a memorable incident occurred. I had just finished swing dancing with a 40-year-old woman whose husband was more interested in drinking than dancing. They were both grateful that I had danced with her, though for very different reasons. It's so nice to dance with an attractive young man, she told me. I'm not that young, and you're not that old. You look like you're barely out of college. That statement leads me to believe that you may have had too much to drink. She laughed. It was an appealing laugh. I'm 35. College was quite a while ago. She looked back at her sleeping husband. If I were a few years younger and didn't have Fred with me, I'd give you an unforgettable night. I'm married. And it's already been unforgettable. She let out a long, satisfied sigh. Your wife is a lucky girl. With that kind of talk, you can fuck anytime you want. I just want to go home. But you helped make my absence more bearable. Thank you for dancing with me. Maybe Fred is feeling some of that absence. I wish I could, she said, reluctantly turning back to him. I went back to my drink. I wasn't as good looking as she'd assumed. I was just younger and more enthusiastic than Fred. I'm not bad looking, but there's nothing special about me. The only thing remarkable about me is that I have a pretty good physique. When I'm on the road, it's easier to forget about being single by working out at the gym. So I work out OT. A side effect was that I had enough lean muscle that I could eat a lot of restaurant food without gaining extra pounds. I looked up from my glass and saw a bright red-headed girl with a glass in her hands moving purposefully in my direction. Some lucky guy was about to get some very nice attention. It turned out to be me. Hi, I'm Sandy. She held out her hand to shake mine. You're a good dancer. Mind if I sit down and talk a little? What do you think? She was the most gorgeous woman I'd seen on the entire trip. One could only dream of her. Of course, if you'd like. It would be my pleasure. That was a significant understatement. I don't get out much, and I thought it would be nice to talk and maybe dance with a nice young guy. Okay, I needed a mirror immediately. Either I was in someone else's body, or someone had stamped young guy on my forehead. She was no more than 25 and could get any guy in the room. I even think she was sexy enough to bring Fred out of hibernation. Why was she hitting on me? Well, you're lucky. I can both dance and talk. Sometimes at the same time. And a sense of humor, too. Just the kind of guy I'd like to spend time with. When she said that, she touched my hand for a moment. I didn't know how to react. It was pointless. If she had known about my intelligence, sense of humor, and charm earlier, she might have had a legitimate interest in me. But based solely on looks, knowing nothing about me, I didn't see how she could be interested in me. There were several younger, better-looking guys in this bar. How did she stop at me? My curiosity and suspicion led to a silence that threatened to become protracted. She saved the day. Why don't we dance? I stood up and held out my hand to her. We walked to the dance floor for some swing dancing. When the dance ended, the orchestra switched to something slow. I tried to walk back to the table, but she grabbed my left arm and put her arms around my neck. Good. I can slow dance. Sandy didn't seem to realize it was a dance. She moved her head toward me so that her right cheek pressed against mine. With her right hand she let go of my left hand and moved it to my neck as well. She moved closer and suddenly my breasts grew, though not in the same direction. When she moved her hips in, it stopped being a dance and became a frottage. I became very uncomfortable, especially when I realized that if this dragged on, I was likely to cause a socially undesirable reaction. Luckily, the song ended before I gave in and I managed to get our table back by pinning her down. If I were single, we would immediately go to my room. I would have capitulated to this irresistible beauty and thrown caution to the wind. But I was not single, and this became an insurmountable obstacle for me. You know my name, but I don't know yours. There's something exciting and dangerous about that, but I think I'd prefer to know your name if you were willing to part with it. If she had ended the sentence with the word withal, I would have thought she was reciting Shakespeare. I'm Simon. I find you very attractive, Simon. Why? Maybe she was just a hot single girl looking to get laid. But the question remained, why me? My radar was activated. Something was wrong here, even if I couldn't pinpoint what it was. At the same time, I wasn't losing anything by accepting the compliment. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm very serious, Simon. She took my hands in hers. I would love to spend the night with you. Why? What am I, an idiot? A stunningly beautiful woman wants to spend the night with me, and my reaction is to look around for a candid camera. It didn't matter, though. Even if my radar wasn't engaged, this invitation had a predetermined resolution. I'm attracted to you too, Sandy. Heck, so are every man in this room and probably a lot of women. But I'm married. I know. I saw the ring. Obviously, you've been left here alone. You're out of town on business. It's just an affair. She'll never find out. What's wrong with that? I'll know. It's not right whether she finds out or not. Relax. You're out here all by yourself. You're spending all this lonely time on the road. You deserve to have fun. And I'm sure I'll have a good time, too. I'm sorry, Sandy, I can't. I mean, I guess I'm not even really sorry. It's just not something I can do. Anything you want, Simon? Anything you want. I can be unforgettable. She sounded sincere and seductive. She knew how to possess a man. It was quite possible that she had never been turned down in her life. Until now. I made several promises when I got married, and one of them concerns this situation, Sandy. When I make a promise, and it's in my power to keep it, I keep it. You are absolutely the most beautiful, sensual, seductive woman I've ever met, including my wife. But I won't do this. God knows I'll remember the missed opportunity, but I won't do it. She looked very surprised, and at the same time something in her reaction seemed a little pleased. I couldn't explain it, but I was sure that's what I saw. Of course, I'd been wrong before. I'm sorry to hear that, but I understand. Your wife is lucky. You're the second woman to say that today. Can I get a certificate to take home? How she laughed delightfully. Don't worry. I'll write it all up in my report. And a sense of humor, too. You'll need the correct spelling of my name. As pleasant as this altercation was, I withdrew to return to my room. The only problem I had now was whether I should tell Carol what had happened. If she found out, I could explain to her that nothing had happened, and she wouldn't believe me anyway. Why would such an amazing woman make a pass at me? If I did tell her, she might give me a scandal. She would have questioned Sandy's beauty and accused me of trying to flirt. I guess it wasn't such a hard decision. To someone watching from the outside, it probably looked like Carol was dominating our relationship. Come to think of it, it looked that way to Carol, too. Most of the time she got her way. It wasn't that I didn't have the guts to stand up to her. It was that the things we disagreed about were usually more important to Carol than to me. For example, I don't know why, but I can't stand the color green in the house. It's a great color for the forest, but I don't think it belongs indoors. Despite this, Carol begrudgingly chose a lime green sofa. To me, it was a puke green affirmation of bad taste. But she was happy, and I was away often enough that I decided to go along with it. I must have looked even more spineless when it was time for Carol to change cars. I was driving a hybrid Honda. I believe that since they don't make dinosaurs anymore, we have an obligation to use as little oil as possible to get what we want. Carol stopped her heart at an SUV, a Ford Explorer. She argued that the planet can afford it because I drive a hybrid. For me, it's not just about the mileage, but they make driving more dangerous. You can't see behind them, which makes it impossible to scout and plan for possible road difficulties ahead. I was pretty heated on both issues, but in the end decided that even if I paid the personal price Carol would impose for losing the argument, other people would continue to buy the damn things and my sacrifice would ultimately accomplish nothing. As I said, Carol was relentless when she wanted something. But, to her surprise, she discovered that I wasn't exactly a pushover. If the matter was important enough to me, I could be more than just intransigent, I could go on the offensive. I think she came to that conclusion the day she told me she wanted to buy expensive lingerie. I told her we couldn't afford it. She immediately went on the offensive. I know how we can afford it. Here we go again. But I'm more likely to give in and do without something needed if she's intent on making my life miserable. You can reduce your expenses. Below a certain amount, they don't even require receipts. That's stealing. Not really. They expect everyone to increase their spending. No, They don't. They expect honesty. Don't be so naive. Everyone does it. I don't know. Don't give me such a hard time. You always give me such a hard time. I ask for something trivial, and you get in my face with your honesty at any cost. Who are you? Can you hear what you're saying? You don't have to yell, she said. You think it's a scream? Keep it up and you'll hear a scream. You're being petty, annoying, cruel, and supremely selfish. Some people try to live up to what they believe in, and you want me to throw that away for a fucking nightgown? I know how you can afford to buy one. Divorce me and get a settlement with enough money to buy whatever you want. You're always overstepping your bounds, Carol, and this time you've gone too far. What are you, a teenager? Calm down. It's not that big of a deal. God, don't talk about divorce over a nightgown. Talk about escalating an argument. Where did the divorce come from? When you tell me that I have to violate my beliefs to make you happy, the only logical answer I can give you is that you'll have to be happy without me because I won't do it. I'm sorry I asked. I wasn't thinking. Of course I wouldn't want you to have to violate your beliefs. I just hadn't thought of it. Please. Underwear isn't as important to me as you are. I'll prove it to you. Carol began unbuttoning her blouse. It was just weird. She took off her blouse and unhooked her bra. Her argument seemed a little better. Here, I'm going to burn him. I want to show you how unimportant he is to me. I grabbed for my bra, but she ducked away. This is stupid, Carol. Burning that bra will only add another one to it. I'm going to burn it. I started chasing her and she ran across the bed to hide. I realized I wasn't so angry anymore. I managed to grab her and she started laughing. It was funny. We made up. After a while, I thought back to that argument. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. I also wasn't sure if it was just an error in judgment. I assumed that she had decided that she couldn't win this fight and that it would be better for her future demands if she backed off as quickly and completely as she could. Maybe I'm just a suspicious guy. Of course, I surprised myself in this argument. She was right about the escalation. I went from entreaties to threats of divorce. Was it all out of proportion? Probably. Did I mean it? I don't know. My reaction was visceral, not logical as I had intended. I think we both understood a little better the ground rules for future confrontations. I hoped she didn't think she could win an argument by simply getting naked, no matter how convincing. Such skirmishes didn't happen often and paled in comparison to the good times. Carol and I took advantage of the weekends by spending as much time together as possible. It was by no means a naked, stay-at-home weekend. I didn't marry her to be a fuck toy. I valued her companionship, her intelligence, and her generosity, except when she tried to extort something from me. The movies, museums, games, and dinners I had to spend alone out of town, I shared with her on weekends and on days when I was working on site or free due to lack of assignment. I thought we were happy. I may even have been right, despite subsequent events that called that opinion into question. One weekend, lying naked and sweaty in a small puddle of bodily fluids, she surprised me with delightful news. Some girls at work have told me that their husbands fantasize about watching them with another man. Have you ever wondered about that, dear? No. Is that what their husbands really fantasized about? Some are more than just fantasizing. Really? I don't understand that. Why not just stay single if you want to be with other people? They say it excites them to see their wives enjoying themselves so much. How about you? Wouldn't you like to see your sweetheart reach ecstasy? I chuckled and pulled up the blanket. I guess I'm interested in that idea? Maybe you don't want to just watch. Maybe you want to join in. Are you asking permission? Maybe. Ask your next husband. The current one isn't interested. If I wanted us to fuck, we'd be single. Lord knows I've had plenty of opportunities on the road. But that's not what I'd be doing. You just don't know when to stop, do you? Oh, relax. I'm just kidding. Some girls told me about it, and I thought it would be fun to tease you. You're always so serious. Can't you take a joke? Again, my suspicion told me that she sensed that she had gone too far, that I was on the verge of unrestrained escalation, and she decided it would be unwise to insist. On the other hand, sometimes I can be too serious and don't immediately realize I'm being teased, as Annie found out. In fact, if I found out you were cheating on me, I would seriously consider leaving you. At the very least, I'd take a brutal revenge, she said. I wouldn't lose sleep over it. I'm not interested in anyone but you, Carol. You'd better not. I needed to understand it better. Did I really not understand it at all? Is it really just a fantasy, Carol? Is it something I overreacted to? I wouldn't want you to be afraid to express your fantasies. Fantasies are just your imagination. It doesn't mean you actually fulfill them. Everyone has fantasies. What's the fantasy? The one that almost all straight men have, to be with two women, one of whom is you. But I'll never do anything to fulfill that. No, you wouldn't. And no, it wasn't a fantasy. I told you I was just fooling around. But look, if it makes you feel better, I'll burn my bra. It's not the solution to all problems. Just fooling around. Finding no convincing evidence to the contrary, I abandoned the endeavor. It was a Friday night in Evansville, Indiana, and I wasn't able to fly out until the morning. It was my 4th straight week on the road, and I was excited to be able to spend a week at home. Not only was I tired, but I was in pain. I've had a toothache for the last 3 days, and today I picked up a prescription for Percocet and an antibiotic from the local dentist. Pain exhausts me and affects my thinking. It's harder to concentrate through the pain. Work was finished and I had dinner in the restaurant of my hotel. Not that I hadn't eaten, but I was supposed to take a Percocet while I ate. Suddenly a pair of female hands covered my eyes from behind. A pair of breasts pressed against my back. I could feel her soft hair on my neck as she spoke softly in my ear. I imagine I met you here, stranger. We weren't strangers. I recognized the voice immediately. Nicole? What are you doing in Evansville? That was too easy. She pretended to pout. Traveling for work. I'm coming back tomorrow. What about you? Me neither. I've been working here during the week for about 4 weeks now. You know how often I get sent away. She knew because she was my wife's best friend. Does Carol know you're here? Is she the one who sent you? I don't think she even knows I'm out of town. I'm being rude. Have you eaten already? Would you like to join me? I don't know. I don't want to impose. Your reasoning is correct. Do I want to lose the opportunity to eat alone again because a good-looking woman is imposing on me? She sat up. You don't always have to be so smart. Why are you sitting down? I haven't made a decision yet. She beckoned to the waitress and asked for a menu. It was a very pleasant surprise. I liked Nicole. She was fun to be with. Even if she hadn't been there, it would have been so much better than being alone. It was much better than that. Dinner paled in comparison to the sparkling conversation. I didn't care much for Carol's fantasies, but now I had one of my own. Had Carol sent Nicole, like Annie, just to make sure I had another good night on the road? What a thoughtful wife I have. After dinner, I had a Black Russian and Nicole had a Manhattan and we danced for a while. There were a few slow dances, but Nicole didn't take as many liberties as Sandy did. We went back to the table and ordered a cup of coffee each. Nicole, I really enjoyed your company tonight. It was sort of like a very nice first date. I hope I get to meet you again when I'm on the road. Better yet, I hope I can get out on the road. I know what it's like to be alone on the road, too. No. You're single and sexy. I bet you don't dine alone very often. Well, I don't think so. Excuse me for a minute. I need to use the men's room. I think I'll go to the little girl's room. I stood up to slide a chair out from under her, but she waved me away. I need to find something in my bag and then I'll leave. Don't worry, I'll be back. Nicole came back about 5 minutes after I did. It reminded me of how lonely that night could be. Do you take sugar or cream? Sugar, I said. We sat and drank and talked for a while. I started to feel weird even though I had only had one drink. I don't feel very good, Nicole. I wonder if I was supposed to abstain from alcohol after taking the Percocet. I didn't read the damn instructions. I think I'd better get back to my room. I'm sorry the evening is over so soon. I hope you feel better. I started to get up, but felt dizzy and fell back into the chair. I think you'd better let me help you back to your room. I often don't agree to help, but my legs were shaking and I felt uncharacteristically malleable. I accepted her offer. The side wall of the elevator was very helpful in keeping me upright. She took my key card and led me to my room. I felt weird. Not sick, just weird. In fact, I was surprisingly cheerful. If it weren't for the extreme unsteadiness of my legs, I would have thought I was just a little tipsy. Percocet is a drug, isn't it? Thank you for helping me back to my room. That was so nice. She helped me over to the bed. Are you feeling okay? You're acting a little weird. I feel great. I must have. I had a wide smile that had no way of disappearing. Let's dance. I tried to get up, but my legs reminded me of the folly of the idea. Be careful, she said. You're so sweet. What a good friend. You're cute too. She kissed my cheek. Thank you. I put my arms around her and pulled her tight against me. It must have been a long time, because at some point I realized I was hugging her, and I couldn't remember when I'd started. I think I'd better get you to bed. You don't seem to be in the best shape. No. I can do it myself. I lifted my leg with my hands, fell off the bed, and started laughing. For some reason that escapes me now, it seemed hysterically funny. Of course you can. She sat down on the floor with me and took off my shoes and socks. I didn't help much. With some difficulty, she took my jacket off, stood up and hung it on a chair. Then she came back and helped me lie down on the bed. She took off my tie and shirt and I started laughing again. After hanging them up, she went back to the bed and undid my belt again. After undoing the button on my pants and pulling down my fly, she pushed me onto my back and started trying to pull my pants off. I was unable to help. You're trying to seduce me. I found that very funny, too, and I laughed until I was out of breath. She pulled back the sheets and started pushing me until I was in a position to cover myself. Then she suddenly pulled down my boxers. Okay, I said. I had no idea what okay was. I don't like the way you look. I'll stay for a while in case you need help. Good. I just don't think I should leave you alone. Good. I could hear it moving, and almost all the lights went out. After a while, I felt the bed sink down. She moved toward me and pulled the blankets over us. I'll stay here with you and take care of you. Good. I was in a surprisingly good mood. Normally I can't deal with not being in complete control of a situation. But for some reason it didn't bother me. She snuggled closer to me, and that's when I realized, hey, you're not wearing any clothes. I didn't want to wrinkle them. That's a good point. You just relax and unwind. Yeah. I think I fell asleep for a while. I woke up to Carol kissing me. I thought I wasn't home, but I must have gotten confused. Sometimes the days go by one after another. Today Carol was especially passionate. I guess absence makes the heart yearn. And aroused. My God, I can't remember the last time I felt such a need. I returned her passion with a vengeance, almost eager to devour her with my mouth. There was an urgency in her moans and explorations that I shared. She grabbed my buttocks and pulled me to her. I could feel everything. I could smell everything. I heard everything. Never before had my senses been so acute. Carol, this is amazing. I've never felt so close to you. I'm not Carol. I'm Nicole. I hesitated. What am I doing? How did this happen? It was wrong. It's okay, Simon. It's okay. It was all right. I pitched forward, and I was enveloped. It was warm and sensual and luxurious. I slowly moved in and out. Carol, Nicole is tired of this pace. Faster. It was more than a suggestion. I tried to comply, but I couldn't seem to. Faster. I can't. Okay. Let's try it your way. As far as I could tell, my method was working pretty well. I couldn't count, but every now and then I felt movements and heard sounds that I recognized as her orgasm. At one point I felt sensations that signaled mine. It was exciting, but exhausting. I was asleep. After a while I woke up and found her lying on top of me. Who was it? Carol or Nicole? Even though I had gotten a good night's sleep, I felt increasingly tired. My senses were tired too. Nicole, I could recognize her now, was riding me with an enthusiasm that made up for my lack of participation. She managed to squeeze another orgasm out of me, and I passed out. It was morning. Sunlight was streaming into the room. I was aroused, but it wasn't morning arousal. Carol's mouth was down there, and it was giving me pleasure. I reached up. I opened my eyes and looked at Carol, Nicole. What the hell are you doing? I grabbed her head and pulled her off me with considerable difficulty. What are you doing here? It's all right, Simon. This isn't normal. I pulled the sheet over my lower body. My blood pressure rose. My skin turned red. It's okay. You seduced me and I stayed the night. Did I seduce you? I didn't. It was marvelous. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Please forgive me. I never meant to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with you, but I love Carol. Oh, God, what have I done? Don't apologize. You couldn't have seduced me if I didn't want you to. I'm not upset at all. I feel fine. I didn't know. A deep sadness and shame swept over me. I had spoken with such conviction, almost arrogance, of the impossibility of ever doing this, and I did. It didn't matter that I had failed Carol, it didn't matter, but the worst part was that I had failed myself. I wasn't the man I thought I was, and it was devastating. I'm just another asshole like all the other assholes. Nicole tried to comfort me, but it was unconvincing. She seemed more content with the situation than sympathetic. What am I gonna do? Have I lost Carol? Had I cost her Nicole's friendship? For the moment, I decided to focus on getting home. How was my suitcase packed? He sat back in his chair. I did. I went back to my room and got my stuff, and then I came back here and packed your suitcase so we'd have more time together this morning. Thank you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. It's not your fault. She sat on the bed naked, pulling me to her. So are we going to use my plan? No. This shouldn't have happened. If it happens again, it will be worse. You've already committed a crime. One more time won't make it worse. I don't understand why I did it last night, but it's a new opportunity to decide whether to do right or wrong. The least I can do is stop doing wrong. I'm sorry. I don't have anything against you. I just have to start acting right. Please? No. What am I supposed to do now? I don't know. Carol has a right to know. I owe her a debt of gratitude. But if I tell her, she'll be very hurt. Is it selfish to absolve myself of some of the guilt at the cost of her pain? Nicole didn't answer, but her demeanor changed. She used to be very positive and accepting of the situation. But now she seemed sad. I think I can live with the guilt myself. But if she finds out on her own, she'll be even more hurt. Talk about having to choose between two equally unattractive options. You're her best friend. What do you say? I don't know what to tell you. I'm sure you'll work it out eventually. She seemed to want to say something else, but refrained. There was pain in her eyes, perhaps regret. Are you okay? I moved to hug her reassuringly, but then the sheet fell away and I realized we were both naked. What can I do to remedy the situation? She smiled, leaned over and squeezed my hand. I'm okay with that. You don't have to do anything. I headed for the shower. It would be absurdly immodest to try to cover myself at that moment. Nicole and I chatted enough to work out the details surrounding the trip to the airport. Fortunately, we didn't sit together on the plane. The entire flight I pondered whether or not to tell Carol. There was no good choice, and I didn't come to any decision. From the airport, I took a cab home. Until I decided I had to act like everything was okay. Carol greeted me enthusiastically. Let's unpack your things, put them away, and then I want to tuck you in, sweetie. You have such a dirty mind. I'm so lucky. As we unpacked, the choice was made for me. I heard her yell. What the hell is this? I turned around. She was holding a blue lace bikini panty. I blushed. Who does this belong to and how did you get it? I didn't answer right away. Don't try to make up some story. You're busted, asshole. No story. No excuses. I can't even explain it. I don't understand what happened myself. Who is she? Nicole. My best friend? You fucked my best friend? You make me sick. Get out. Stay in the guest room. I don't know if I can talk to you again. Get out. It went better than I expected. I was still married, at least for now. On Monday, I went to the doctor to get some tests done. I had no reason to believe that Nicole had any diseases, but it would have been foolish not to get as much reassurance as I could at this late date. Carol didn't speak to me for 3 days. She was still angry when she spoke. I've decided not to divorce you, but I resent it and I know what I need to get over it. I'm going to get my revenge. I'm going to find someone to fuck, and I want you by my side when I do. Carol, 2 wrongs don't make a right. They're doing it for me. I'm just going to fuck a stranger. You fucked my best friend. I didn't mean to. I didn't have any plan or intention. It just happened. Would you rather I wait for some stranger to start fighting for me and let things happen on their own? I'm not trying to lessen the gravity of what I've done. I'm saying that methodical planning takes it to a different level than what I did. I'm also not saying that I have a right to resent you. That would be hurtful, but I don't have that right. As far as observation goes, I don't have a chance for that. What if I insist on it? What if I need this to get over it? Otherwise, I won't be able to stay married. I was on edge. This is your fantasy, isn't it? You've talked about it before. Do you think you need this to get over my behavior, or are you just using it as an excuse to shove your fantasies down my throat? What if you're taking my thoughts too far? Does that give me the right to push my fantasies down your throat? And where does it end when one of us goes so far that we break up? Is that your idea of getting over it? You speak very high and mighty for one who has stooped so low. I speak as if I love you and I don't want to go down a path that would make it impossible for us to live together. Do you have carte blanche? What if you want to cut off my hand? Is that okay because I cheated? Is there really no limit? Could the neighbors hear me? Okay. I'll concede if you watch. She looked more disappointed than angry. At least you'll recognize my right to get even. I didn't even come close to saying that. There's no right to do wrong. I just said that I have no right to resent you. As much as I screwed up our relationship, I think what you're planning will only make it worse. I'll let you know when to leave. You'll know when that happens, because you're not going to get anything until then. It was wrong. I don't mean that what she was about to do was wrong. Of course it wasn't. I mean that there was something inappropriate about the whole situation. It took her 3 days to decide on the appropriate action. But at the same time, she told me that if she ever found me cheating, she would take revenge. Why then did it take her 3 days to make a decision? Perhaps she just needed to be determined to see it through. But she was pretty insistent that I watch, and had already brought it up. She seemed disappointed that she didn't get this concession from me, although her behavior before and afterwards was angry. How long will I be cut off? It's a tactic she's resorted to in the past to get her way. If her revenge would be swift, it would probably be because she always had someone in mind. Besides, she didn't respond to any of my arguments. This was typical when she was trying to accomplish something. But in other circumstances, she carefully considered what I said, responded thoughtfully, and sometimes leaned toward my into view. All I had was inconclusive evidence and a bad feeling. I decided I needed to gather more information to find out what was really going on. Maybe she was going to pretend to cheat to teach me a lesson. But then she wouldn't have insisted I watch unless she was prepared for me to talk her out of it. Maybe it was just something she said was revenge. Maybe she'd been planning all along and was just looking for an opportunity to be with him in a way that she couldn't be blamed. Maybe she had an affair with him while I was out of town and it was all set up so that if I caught her in the future, she could say, "It was just a one-time mistake with my revenge boyfriend and I'm sorry. It won't happen again." Perhaps it was something so twisted and insidious that I couldn't even imagine it. I decided the only way to find out was to tape them so I could hear what she was saying and see how she was acting. I had to act fast. I had no idea when she would. I went to my office in the basement and began searching the internet for information and specifications on surveillance equipment. I also looked for local stores where I could buy the equipment because I didn't know if I had time to wait for it to be delivered. I decided to allow for redundancy in my plan because the information was too important not to capture. I hid cameras in our bedroom, the guest bedroom, and the living room. Those were the most likely locations of her destinations. I probably could have put cameras in the living room and the rec room, but I was trying to find out what she was doing, not expose a spy network. I would split the signals from the cameras so that each would be recorded on a VCR and routed to a hard drive on my server. VCRs would only record for 8 hours, and I had no idea how much time she planned to spend. My storage capacity was huge, and I could record videos for days without running out of disk space. I suppose it's possible that I was focusing on all of this to distract myself from the guilt and trepidation over the damage to our marriage. Fortunately, I was in town this week, so I called in and took a personal day off. Shortly after Carol left the house, I got started on my errands. I got through them quickly, but most of the day was spent installing cameras and wiring and making sure it was all discreet. The splitters and software setup I was able to do in my office after dinner since Carol was still ignoring me. Friday afternoon, Carol called me at the office and asked me not to be home for dinner. She said that I should spend the night elsewhere and that she would call me when it was safe to come home. I didn't have to do anything. The software services were already installed on my network and the recording would be activated on the move. This espionage was not a gamble. It was something I felt I needed to do to make sense of the situation. I went to a restaurant for dinner and then got a motel room. As I sat in the room and stared at the blank TV screen, I wondered what the hell I was doing. What kind of man would let his wife do what mine was doing right now? A wimp. Someone who doesn't deserve to have his feelings spared. I grabbed my keys and sprinted out the door. I was going to go home and stop this. I'm going to grab him and kick him out of my house. I managed to put the key in the ignition before I started thinking again. What was I supposed to say to Carol? If you cheat on me, I'll leave you. The problem was that I should have also said, if you don't forgive me for cheating, I'll leave you. The juxtaposition of those two sentences was absurd. Even though the way she cheated was more hurtful, why should I be forgiven and she not be forgiven for the same thing? But that wasn't all. Suppose I succeeded in asserting my manhood tonight. What's to stop Carol from doing it the first night I'm out of town? Or every night I was out of town, for that matter? I couldn't quit my job to stay home and look after her all the time. It wouldn't be a life for either of us anyway. Then she'd tell me what she'd done. The only difference would be that I didn't volunteer to be away to let it happen. Or maybe she wouldn't have told me. She'd just keep doing it until she got caught. I took the key out of the ignition. Confronting her tonight was not an option. At best, it would delay her revenge. At worst, it could make the situation even more destructive to the continuation of our marriage. I got out of the car and went back to the room. No acceptable solution came to mind. I tried to watch TV, but it was hard to concentrate. A feeling of dread gripped me. At 10 o'clock I fell into a heavy sleep. I woke up at 8 o'clock, but despite the time that had passed, I wasn't very well rested. I got dressed and went to breakfast. Carol called me on my cell phone just after 9. She was cheerful, almost cheerful. "You can come home right now. I'm off shopping for the day and won't be back until late tonight. You'll be lucky today, big guy. I'll see you later." She didn't even wait for an answer. In her opinion, the case had ended successfully. It doesn't have to be. I checked out and went home. I settled down in front of the computer and checked the VCRs. Only the one in the bedroom showed significant time. It hadn't used all 8 hours. They must have gotten some sleep. Now I'm faced with a problem I hadn't thought of. To fully understand the situation, I would have to watch her do something I refused to watch. That prospect made me cringe, and my stomach ached before I even started. Perhaps in the time Carol would be away I could watch the entire tape, but I didn't want to subject myself to that torture if it could be avoided. I tried to watch a few snippets and see if they were explicit enough. I rewound back about an hour and started the tape. I immediately recognized the faint illumination. A dark-haired man was lying on top of Carol, between her legs. They were straddling his back. He let her speak. She was not lacking in enthusiasm. "Oh, God. Fuck me harder. This is fantastic, so much better than I imagined." How long had she been imagining this? He joined them with a rather figurative, "Oh, baby." Couldn't he even remember her damn name? I heard myself say out loud, "I can't believe it." I rushed towards the nearest bathroom. I managed to slow down enough to avoid bruising my knees as I fell to the floor. I splashed my breakfast down the toilet. I cleaned myself up, but went back to the floor and lay there for a while until I felt less nauseous. Many men tell stories of their wives being so addicted that it acted as an arousal agent. For me, it was emetic. I went back to my office. Could I look any further? Was I cleansed enough to get through this? As I entered the study, I saw Carol heading toward the bed from the side of the bathroom. She was naked. There was cum glistening on her thighs. She hadn't used protection. Neither of us would have any luck tonight. She sat down on the bed and picked up the phone. Had she really called me just then? Hi. Who was on the other end of the phone? It was amazing. Shit. It never occurred to me to write down the phone number. I could only imagine the other side of the conversation. No. It was just as I expected. The only thing that could have been better was if Simon had been there, watching. I didn't think I could talk him into it. He's so cocky. I don't know. Simon's out of town a lot, but I don't think I want to be pressured into hiding an affair. Did she talk to him? I know. Thank you. Without you, none of this would have been possible. I don't suppose you'll be able to get Simon again? She chuckled at that. Nicole? No one else could catch me. I thought I had her. Well, I feel great. Why don't we go shopping for the day? Simon is in no position to complain about me spending money. What do you say? Great. I'll call you and Simon when I'm ready to leave. The words in Simon sounded flirty. Carol hung up the phone and headed for the bathroom. The next time she appeared on screen, she was already getting ready to go shopping. She was awfully friendly with Nicole, considering the latter had betrayed Carol, too. Couldn't she get a date without Nicole? Panties. Nicole packed my bag. She must have put them in there on purpose. Take me out again? There seemed to be more here than I realized, though I had no idea what it was. I am not a stupid man. No doubt many of you will disagree, realizing the situation in which I find myself. I had the audacity to think I was shrewd and insightful. In fact, I was taken for a fool. I didn't think I could get the whole story just by asking Carol. She was too good at spinning. To succeed, I had to plan carefully. I spent the day preparing. I saw Carol's car pull up to the driveway a little before 5:30 p.m. I immediately picked up the phone and dialed the number. Hello? Nicole, there's something wrong with Carol. I need your help. I need you to come over right away. What happened? What? I hung up. Melodrama, sure. But I wanted her to help me uncover the truth, and I wasn't sure I could convince her to come for that purpose. I heard the key rattle in the back door lock. Carol's hands were full. She put her packages on the kitchen table. You look awfully serious for someone who's going to have a good night out. Carol would be pleased with her situation if she won the lottery. Have a seat. We need to talk. She knew how to transform in the blink of an eye. What kind of shit is this? You're messing with me and I have to come over and talk? I told you I had no right to take offense at you. But your actions were just as wrong as mine. We discussed what I did, didn't we? Now that you've gotten your revenge, we can talk about what I need to move on with my life. First of all, did you use condoms? She blushed. She hesitated. There was no point in making up obvious lies now. She was Carol, as she always was. The best defense was a go. OD offense. What makes you think I didn't use condoms? I haven't found one. I could flush them out. She would have made a great politician. Never really responded. I didn't find any packaging. Did you wash it off too? Now that evasion had become impractical, she changed tactics. You didn't use condoms with Nicole. How do you know he was safe? I asked. She said not quite quickly. Looks like I'm out of luck tonight. If Bob didn't have to use condoms with my wife, I won't have to. What about you? You might have an STD. I have been tested. Until you are tested, you are on your own. Bastard. A very witty argument. How long have you been planning this? What do you mean? I started after I found out about you and Nicole. You were surprisingly quick to find someone. I'm very attractive. Besides the fact that it was your fantasy, why did I have to watch? So that you learn your lesson. What kind of class is this? So I never screw up again. She was getting worried. And so did I, and how did I not learn that? Didn't I know how much I had hurt you? Didn't I feel disgusted with myself for my lack of self-control? Wasn't I hurt enough by what you were doing and the fact that you planned to do it to me? How could I have taught that lesson better? She didn't answer. There was no reasonable answer. Who is he? Just an acquaintance from work. How did you manage to get Bob to agree so quickly? How long did you flirt? He just liked me. I talked to him on Wednesday. You just said, "Hey Bob, doing anything on Friday? I'd like you to spend the night at my house fucking me in my marital bed." No preparation? No introduction? He's a really nice guy for agreeing to take you on so quickly. His name is Frank, and it wasn't like that. What was it like? I don't want to talk about it. I have to tell you, Carol, and I'm not very proud of this, that I have gathered some evidence of this situation. Be very careful what you lie about. Deceiving me in that way was vile and despicable. I think I can get over it. But if I feel like I can't trust you, we won't have a foundation on which we can rebuild this marriage. You may tell some lies and I will know they are lies. Since you don't know the things I know, you're taking a big risk if you don't tell me the truth. Are you telling me you're going to leave me after what you did? I'm saying I'll leave you if I can't trust you after what you've done. If I can't trust you, how do I know you won't kill me in my sleep? I would never do that. But the question is, what would you do? How far would you go? I saw Nicole's car pull up. You conspired with Nicole to get me to be unfaithful to her? You're crazy. Perhaps. But you haven't answered my question. And before you do, don't forget that I may have proof. Besides, I'm going to ask Nicole about it. She doesn't want to talk to you. Just in time. The doorbell rang. It's her. Why don't we find out if you're right? Why did you call her when you were done with Bob? Frank. I didn't do it. I headed for the door. Why don't you try answering in a different way? How did you agree to go shopping with her? Well, yes, I called her about it. I meant I didn't call to talk about it. Nicole rushed past me into the living room. Carol, are you okay? Simon said something was wrong with you. I didn't give her a chance to answer. Nicole, when did you and Carol start planning this? Carol intervened. What are you trying to do? Carol, be quiet. We'll get to the bottom of this, I said. She wasn't so easy to stop. You have a lot of nerve trying to pull something like that in my fucking house. If we don't resolve this, this will just be your fucking house. You can fuck yourself to death here, without me. Either my rage or that prospect seemed to silence her for a while. What's wrong, Carol, is that we're having a discussion about marriage. Nicole, when did you two start planning this? I asked. What are you planning? I don't know what you're talking about. How did your panties end up in my suitcase? It was just a mistake. I put them in the wrong place. How stupid do you think I am? I admit I was an incredible fool for a while in this whole thing, but I'm not that stupid. Just one pair? You were packing at the same time? You told me you were packing up your room and then came back to help me pack mine. Well. Nicole didn't have a ready answer. How is it, I looked meaningfully at my notes, that none of this would have happened without you? They both looked surprised. Did it occur to you that I could have put the phones on a wiretap? Logically, it didn't make sense. If I was recording the phone, I would have both sides of the conversation. In the panic of the moment of capture, it was hard to analyze. When did you start planning this? I didn't care who answered. The silence seemed to last forever, though in fact it lasted probably less than a minute. I waited. Justifiably or not, I had a feeling that if I spoke first, I would lose the advantage and the truth forever. About 5 months ago, Nicole said in a voice no louder than a whisper. Nicole, Carol said. You heard. He knows. We'll only make it worse if we lie. Nicole has that right. I don't guarantee I'll stay with you no matter what I find out. But I guarantee I'll leave if I don't find out the truth. What was the plan? I'd try to get you to seduce me and then leave evidence for Carol. Nicole. Did Carol think she would be able to hide it all, or was it a shock to hear it out loud? Carol, isn't it obvious that I realized that? She knew where to find me, and so did Annie. She left clues, as I now realize, in the obvious way. Let it all come out. Did she help you with this information, Nicole? Yes. So, Carol, you've been planning with Nicole to have Frank for 5 months now, and some time before that you came up with a plan? She was calm now, and her manners were subdued. Yes. Why such an elaborate plan? Why not just cheat while I was out of town and hide it from me? I thought you'd leave me if you found out. And that's better? I didn't think you'd find out. Why did you do that? I didn't think you'd find out. Is that the reason? Frank has been flirting with me for a long time. It made me feel attractive. You were always gone and he was always there for me. He paid a lot of attention to me. He kept trying to win me over even though I turned him down time and time again. It made me feel special. Being pursued was so exciting. It made me remember how much fun I used to have when I played the field before we met. I think in the end I allowed myself to do it. I wanted to see if I was missing something. I wanted to feel the thrill of being wanted. You didn't do anything. I was just caught up in the excitement. It was stupid. You could have just secretly tricked Carol. It would have been a lousy thing to do, but at least you could have avoided hurting me. I didn't think you'd find out. So you betrayed me by cheating with Frank, and you betrayed me by making me think it was all my fault? It sounds awful when you say it like that. How can I put this delicately? She shrugged and raised her eyebrows. So you betrayed me twice? Yes. I'm sorry, dear. That's not all, is it? What do you mean? Carol asked. Those two betrayals are pretty bitter to swallow, but maybe I can overcome them. But that's not the whole story, is it, Nicole? She shrugged and shook her head. Did I seduce you, Nicole? Of course. Don't you remember? She said it with genuine conviction. No. That's why I'm asking. I only had one drink, but I got really sick. I remember part of the evening, but not much. Did you do something to me? It could have been Percocet. It could have been means, it could have been something else. What else? What do you mean? Nicole asked. So that's what Carol meant when she said, I don't think you can get Simon again, do you? What do you mean, get Simon again? Carol sighed. Nicole lowered her eyes. Her shoulders slumped. She didn't answer right away. And when she did, her voice was barely audible. GHB. I only gave you half a dose so as not to hurt you. Why? Carol knew from that woman's report that you were impossible to seduce. Redhead. Carol hired an agency that checks to see if spouses are faithful. That woman would have slept with you, and Carol would have gotten an excuse. But you wouldn't do it. So Carol knew she had to do something else. Whose idea was it, GWB's? They looked at each other. Carol was silent, but she blushed. Carol looked into the matter and was able to get some. Simon, I want you to know how sorry I am. I started feeling sorry the next morning when you didn't want to touch me. You were more upset about what you thought was your mistake than what Carol would do to you. I felt lousy and didn't want you to know what I had done, so I just played along. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. Her tone confirmed her feelings. Carol? In retrospect, I don't think it was such a good idea. I don't know what I was thinking. That doesn't even remotely sound like an apology. I'm really sorry. I really am. I didn't want you to find out. Is that what you regret? No. That's not what I meant. If you hadn't found out, it wouldn't have hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just let myself get carried away by the excitement. I'm sorry, Simon. I promise it will never happen again. I will never give you a reason to doubt me. Do you realize what you did? You helped me become a rape victim and made me believe it was my fault. I don't even know what the worst part of all this is. I can probably accept that you decided and plotted to ruin Frank. Everyone makes mistakes, even the really big ones. But it wasn't enough for you. Do you realize what you did? You made me become an adulterer. For me, that's even worse than the rape. You come up with terrible ideas, and you push them. And you keep pushing until you reach the edge. And this time you went over the edge. Don't leave me, Simon. I'll do anything to make it up to you. I love you more than anything in the world. More than anything else in the world, except you and what you want. I'm going to go pack Carol's things. You'll hear from my lawyer. Don't leave, Simon, Carol said. I don't know what I'll do without you. I'll do anything. That's the truest thing you've said today. I walked away. She followed me into the bedroom and continued to plead while I packed my things. Anger and resentment made it hard for me to hear her words. Maybe she was sincere. Maybe she was just sorry for her loss. It didn't matter. I couldn't stay. She'd gone too far. Carol, after the way you treated me, I decided to get revenge. Anything you want. Anything you want. Just don't leave me. I'd put hope in her mind that after I'd done everything I'd set out to do, she'd be able to get me back. It was cruel to let her think that. At that moment, the thought made me happy. I was a bastard. The pleasure I'd taken in bullying her then disgusted me now. But I had time to heal. I left her, sobbing. Maybe she really did love me. But it didn't matter. The price was too high. I wanted revenge. I wanted her to suffer like I did. I wanted her family to recognize her for the ruthless, lying narcissist she was. I wanted the people she worked with to know the treachery she was willing to bring to the job. I wanted her friends to know what she was capable of doing to her longtime lover and companion and how she was willing to compromise her best friend to get it done. Could they be next? I wanted all these people to know about her and shun her. I wanted her next sexual encounter to be with some big, ugly lesbian who would leave the convicted rapist no choice in the relationship. The mere thought of her suffering gave me pleasure. But after the rush of emotions brought on by these thoughts, I wondered what I would have. I got along well with her family, but I didn't have a strong, independent relationship with her parents or brothers. Would they embrace me when they found out what their daughter had done to me? I wasn't interested in having any kind of relationship with them. I hardly knew the people she worked with. I wasn't around to see them that often. Her friends were her friends. We got along fine, but I wouldn't have sought them out as friends myself. As for accusing her of rape, without a confession, that would be next to impossible. Even so, Nicole could end up in jail, too, and I didn't want that. If the trial started, I would be the object of public ridicule. Worst of all, even if I could cause all this suffering to Carol, what would that do to me? A man who takes so little pleasure in his own life that his only pleasure comes from seeing someone else suffer? If I took action to make her suffer, I would lose more respect for myself as a human being than I would gain satisfaction from her suffering. Revenge was beginning to seem like a mirage, a promise of a cool, refreshing drink that turned out to be nothing but a pile of hot air. I went back to the house when I found out that Carol wasn't home. I had some unfinished business. I looked at the tape in the living room. "Come in, Frank." "Oh, baby, I'm so glad you finally decided to do this." "Well, you certainly were persistent. You flatter the girl." I didn't need to see anything else. At least she was telling the truth about that. That vile bastard stalked my wife until he succeeded. That doesn't mitigate her abhorrent behavior. But it demanded retribution. I called Carol's office and asked for Frank. Luckily, there was only one there. "Frank, this is Simon Newsom. I've just come from the public health department, and they told me that I'm required by law to warn all sexual partners that Carol and I have had that I contracted chlamydia from her. You better get tested, man." He was sputtering saliva, swearing and calling her a goddamn bitch. Of course, he'd find out he didn't have it unless he got it elsewhere, but I wasn't done with him yet. A week later, I was waiting in the parking lot when he went to his car. I walked right up to him and lunged at him as he approached the car, swatting him on the hood. "Hello, Frank. It's Simon Newsom again." I pressed myself against him, restricting his breathing. "You bastard. Carol had nothing." "I'm the bastard? You stalked my wife, convinced her to fuck you, ruined our marriage, and I'm the bastard?" I continued to press him. Either because it was hard to breathe, let alone talk, or because he had nothing to say, he remained silent. "You were lucky this time, Frank. You didn't catch anything and you stayed alive. Your next husband may decide to beat you to a pulp or kill you without even asking your side. I probably won't kill you, although I haven't decided that for sure. I guess you'll have to live with the consequences of your actions. We'll see you again, Frank." Or not. I think I succeeded in sounding formidable. I felt formidable. I hoped he would worry for a long time. But it didn't matter. I had told the truth. The next guy might just kill him without a second thought. I was relieved. That kind of revenge didn't diminish me. I forgave Nicole. She was truly remorseful, starting that morning in my hotel room. We even became friends. Carol kept calling, but it was 2 months before I returned her call. Carol, I don't really feel like talking about much. I just wanted to tell you that I've decided to forgive you. I can't say whether you deserve it or not, but you can absolve me of responsibility. Does this mean we have a chance to be together again? I forgive you, Carol. But I don't think I can forget. I can't imagine ever being able to trust you. I'll never give you a reason to doubt me again. I don't need any new reasons. You're welcome. I can't do that. Goodbye. I hung up without waiting for an answer. I didn't speak with malice. I still felt something for her. I just didn't want to risk my peace of mind over her. I had spent a good portion of my life with her, and most of it had been very good. I sincerely hoped she would be happy, but I didn't really care. If I never heard anything more about her life, I would be perfectly fine. I talked to Carol again. I didn't recognize the number she called from. Hey, Simon. Carol, we have nothing to talk about. Just give me a minute and listen to me. That's all I want. I've been thinking a lot about my behavior, especially after you said you forgave me. I can't find the words to adequately describe how badly I behaved. Not only was I willing to risk our entire relationship over a meaningless little thing, I was willing to rub your face in it. I can't imagine how I could have done that, and I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to take me back. I wouldn't take me back after the way I acted. What I did would have been shameful if I had done it to a stranger. That I could do it to someone I love, even worse, someone who loved me, fills me with disgust. I know it doesn't atone for the way I acted, but I needed to apologize to you sincerely. I know how empty and useless my apology was at the time. I realize that now. I hope this will be helpful to you. After about 10 to 15 seconds, I came to the conclusion that she was done. Not only was she saying the right things, but she sounded sincere. I hadn't realized it until then, but I guess I needed to hear them. Thank you, Carol. Neither of us had anything to say, so we ended the conversation. Sometime later, Nicole told me, without asking, that Carol was unhappy. She doesn't go out much. They don't even go out much. It's a shame, but it's not my problem. I got what I thought I wanted, Carol's suffering. It wasn't satisfying. How pathetic would I feel if I had worked hard to get it and then remained unsatisfied? The worst revenge one could inflict on Carol would be to lose me and realize how she had done it. I loved her, but I guess I knew it from the start. All her other virtues and qualities distracted me from a character flaw serious enough to allow her to abandon her marriage for a fantasy. I don't date women like her anymore. I'm looking for a woman with a good heart. There are other things I pay attention to, but this one I can't deal with. I also changed careers. Carol's deception helped me get into the security and surveillance field before the computer software market bottomed out. Now I stay at home most of the time. I really hope that one day I will have someone to stay home with.